I saw the posting on a Wednesday afternoon while sitting in a McDonald's parking lot, watching my bank account tick closer to overdraft. Water treatment operator, night shift, immediate hire, double the state minimum. No degree required. They wanted someone who could follow instructions and didn't mind working alone. I called from the parking lot. A man named Gerald answered on the first ring. "You read the whole posting?" he asked. "Yes." "The part about the rules?" "I saw that." "Can you follow rules exactly?" "I worked pharmacy inventory for 3 years. I can follow protocols." He was quiet for 5 seconds. I counted. "Facility is 40 minutes north of you. Martindale Water Treatment Plant number 7. Come tomorrow at 9 p.m. I'll have your paperwork and access card. Bring a flashlight and a watch that shows seconds." He hung up. I needed the money. My sister's medical bills had crushed me after she died, and the credit card companies didn't care that I'd been paying for someone else's leukemia. I had $41 in checking and rent was due in 6 days. I drove home and set 3 alarms. The plant sat alone at the end of a county road, surrounded by pine forest on 3 sides and a retention pond on the 4th. The main building was concrete and steel, 2 stories painted industrial beige. Floodlights illuminated the parking area and the fence line. A smaller building sat 50 yards to the east, marked auxiliary. The water tower loomed behind everything, dark against the darker sky. Gerald met me at the main entrance. He was 60, maybe older, with gray stubble and reading glasses hanging from his neck. He carried a clipboard and a ring of keys that clinked when he moved. "Emma Voss?" "Yes." "ID." I handed him my driver's license. He checked it against the clipboard, then held out a plastic key card on a lanyard. "Main building, pump room, storage, and bathrooms. Auxiliary is locked and stays locked. Don't try your card there. Don't try any keys there." "Understood." "Radio is channel 7, no other channel. If it's static, leave it on channel 7. If someone uses channel 6 or 8, don't respond." "Okay." "Shift is 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Sunday through Thursday. Tonight's Thursday, so you'll get Friday and Saturday to adjust, then back Sunday. Pay is deposited bi-weekly. Sign here." I signed 4 forms without reading them. He handed me a yellow paper folded in thirds. "Rules are on here. Read them before 10. Read them every night before 10. I'll walk you through the building now." The main entrance opened into a small lobby with tile floors and fluorescent lights. A desk sat empty near the door. Hallway to the left, hallway to the right, stairwell straight ahead. Gerald walked right. "Pump room is here. You'll check it at midnight, 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Look at the pressure gauges. If any gauge reads above 80 or below 40, you call me. Radio first, then the landline if I don't answer, in 3 minutes. Numbers on the wall." The pump room was warm and loud. 6 pumps, each the size of a compact car, painted green. Gauges clustered above each one. A digital clock on the wall read 9:47. "Bathrooms are on the 2nd floor, 2 of them. Use the one marked personnel only. The other one stays locked." "What's in it?" "Doesn't matter, you don't open it." He led me upstairs. The personnel bathroom was white tile, 1 stall, 1 sink. The other door, unmarked except for a small bathroom symbol, had a deadbolt and a keypad. "Supply closet is at the end of this hall. Take inventory at 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Write the counts on the log sheet inside. Radio batteries, salt, tape, cleaning supplies. Count everything." The closet was narrow and organized, shelves labeled in permanent marker. A clipboard hung on a nail. "Break room is across from the closet. Coffee, microwave, fridge. Eat whenever, but don't leave the building. Don't go outside except to your car, and only at the start and end of shift." "Not even to smoke?" "No." We went back downstairs. Gerald stopped in the lobby and checked his watch. 9:56, read the rules now." "I'll answer 2 questions, then I'm leaving." He walked to the front door and stood with his back to me. I unfolded the yellow paper. Night shift operational rules. Martindale Plant 7. 1. Arrive no earlier than 9:45 p.m. and no later than 9:58 p.m. Enter the building before 10 p.m. After 10 p.m., do not open the front door for any reason until 6 a.m. 2. At 10 p.m. exactly, lock the front door from inside. Check the lock 3 times. Check every window on the first floor. All windows should be closed. If any window is open, close it and radio Gerald immediately on Channel 7. 3. Pump room checks occur at midnight, 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Enter, check the 6 gauges, log the readings, and exit. Spend no more than 4 minutes inside. If you hear knocking from inside the pipes while you are in the pump room, finish your check and leave immediately. Do not investigate the knocking. 4. At 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., walk the perimeter of the first floor inside the building. Count your steps. The full loop is 214 steps at normal pace. If you count more than 220 steps, stop walking and return to the lobby by the shortest route. Do not complete the loop. 5. Use only the bathroom marked personnel only. If you hear water running in the other bathroom, do not investigate. If you see light under the door of the other bathroom, do not open it. If someone knocks from inside the other bathroom, do not answer. 6. Inventory supplies at 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Count every item and record the number on the log sheet. If the count for any item is higher than the previous log entry, recount carefully. If it is still higher, note the discrepancy and continue your shift. Do not remove the extra items. 7. Radio. Checks occur at midnight, 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Use Channel 7 only. Say Plant 7 night shift, checking in. Gerald will respond, confirmed. If he says anything else or if a different voice responds, do not reply. Wait 1 minute and try again. If the incorrect response repeats, do not use the radio for the rest of the shift. 8. Between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., stay on the first floor. Do not go upstairs during this window for any reason. If you are already upstairs at 2 a.m., come downstairs immediately. 9. If you see someone in the building who is not Gerald, do not speak to them. Do not acknowledge them. Continue your tasks. If they speak to you, do not answer. If they touch you, leave the building immediately using the front door and wait in your car until 6 a.m. 10. At 4:15 a.m., check the front door lock. Do not open the door. Confirm the deadbolt is engaged. Return to the lobby. 11. Keep your flashlight with you at all times. If the building lights go out, do not try to turn them back on. Use your flashlight and complete your remaining tasks as scheduled. At 6 a.m., unlock the front door and leave. Follow these rules exactly. Variations will result in immediate termination. I read it twice. Gerald was still facing the door. 2 questions, I said. Go. What happens if I count more than 220 steps? Don't know. No one who counted that high came back for a second shift. What's in the locked bathroom? That's not a useful question. Ask another or save it. I thought. What's knocking in the pipes? Pressure irregularities, could be air pockets, could be something else, doesn't matter. You hear it, you leave, that's the rule. He turned around. It's 9:59, I'm leaving. Lock the door behind me at 10 exactly. Your first shift ends at 6 a.m. If you're not sure about something, follow the rules as written. If something happens that isn't covered, use common sense and radio me. Okay. Most people last 3 weeks. Pay is good enough that 3 weeks solves most problems. If you make it past 3 weeks, we'll talk about a raise. He opened the door and left. I watched the clock on the wall. At 10 p.m. exactly, I locked the front door. I tested the deadbolt 3 times. It held. I walked to the first window and checked it. Closed and latched. Second window, same. 6 windows on the first floor, all closed. I returned to the lobby. The building was quiet except for the hum from the pump room. My watch read 10:07. I had 53 minutes until the first perimeter walk. I sat at the desk in the lobby and reread the rules. The paper smelled like toner and something else, metallic. The handwriting on the bottom of the page was small and neat. Revised March. Additional operational notes pending. I thought about the 11 rules. Some made sense. Locking doors, checking equipment, staying on task. Others felt arbitrary. Why 2 a.m. to 2:30? Why exactly 214 steps? Why the flashlight warning? I didn't care. I needed 5 shifts to make rent. After that, I'd decide if I wanted more. At 11 p.m., I stood and started the perimeter walk. The hallway to the right led past the pump room door, around a corner past 2 storage closets, around another corner, and back to the lobby from the left. I counted each step. 53, 64, 89, 112. The fluorescent lights flickered once as I turned the second corner. I kept walking. 141, 166, 193. I reached the lobby at 214. My watch read 11:04. I sat down and wrote the count on a notepad I'd brought. 11 p.m. walk, 214 steps. The next hour passed slowly. I drank bad coffee from the break room and scrolled my phone. No signal inside the building. I'd known that from the job posting. Gerald had said the landline worked if I needed it, but the number was only for emergencies. At midnight, I walked to the pump room. The radio was clipped to my belt. I pulled it free and pressed the transmit button. Plant 7, night shift, checking in. Static, then Gerald's voice. Confirmed. I hooked the radio back and opened the pump room door. The heat hit me first, the noise second. All 6 pumps were running. I walked to the first gauge, 62, second gauge, 58, third, 64, fourth, 57, fifth, 61, sixth, 63. I logged the numbers on the sheet clipped near the door. My watch read 12:03. No knocking, no sounds except the pumps. I left and closed the door behind me. At 1 a.m., I climbed the stairs to the supply closet. The hallway was empty. The locked bathroom door was dark underneath. No light, no water sounds. I walked past it without stopping. The supply closet inventory took 8 minutes. Radio batteries 42, salt containers 16, duct tape rolls 11, trash bags 23, cleaning spray 18, paper towels 34, bleach 9, flashlight batteries 26, zip ties 14, plastic sheeting 7 rolls. I wrote the counts on the clipboard and checked the previous entry, all matched. I closed the closet and returned to the lobby. At 2 a.m., I stayed downstairs. The rule was clear. I set a timer on my watch for 30 minutes and waited at the desk. Upstairs, something creaked. I looked at the ceiling. Old building, wood settling, pipes. Another creak, softer. I checked my watch. 2:07, 23 minutes left. The creaking stopped. I heard a sound like a door closing, very faint. Then nothing. At 2:31, I radioed Gerald. Plant 7, night shift, checking in. Confirmed. I went to the pump room. Gauges read normal. I logged them. No knocking. Back in the lobby, I waited. My watch read 2:46. The 3 a.m. perimeter walk was 14 minutes away. I thought about my sister. We used to joke about the graveyard shift when she was in the hospital. She called me at 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes when the pain was worse, just to hear someone's voice. I'd stayed on the phone with her until the nurses came with morphine. The memory made my chest tight. I stood and walked to the window nearest the desk. Outside, the floodlights lit the parking lot and the tree line beyond. My car sat alone near the entrance. The auxiliary building was dark. At 3 a.m., I started the perimeter walk. 20 steps, 48, 77. I turned the first corner. The hallway stretched ahead, lit by fluorescents. Storage closets on the left. 104, 133. At step 161, I heard something behind me. Footsteps. I kept walking. Rule 9. If you see someone in the building who is not Gerald, do not speak to them. Do not acknowledge them. 172, 186. The footsteps kept pace, maybe 10 steps behind. Same rhythm, same weight. 200, 210. I turned the final corner into the lobby. The footsteps stopped. I looked back. The hallway was empty. My count, 214. I sat at the desk and wrote, 3 a.m., walk, 214 steps. Footsteps behind, stopped at lobby. My hands were shaking. I put the pen down and breathed slowly. At 4 a.m., I radioed Gerald. Confirmed. I checked the pump room. Gauges normal, no knocking. I logged the readings and left. At 4:15, I checked the front door lock. Deadbolt engaged. I returned to the lobby. At 5 a.m., I went upstairs for inventory. The hallway was quiet. The locked bathroom was dark. I walked past it to the supply closet. I counted every item. Radio batteries, 42. Salt containers, 16. Duct tape rolls, 11. I stopped. Trash bags, 26. I checked the previous log entry. 1 a.m., inventory. 23 trash bags. I counted again. 26, 3 extra. I noted the discrepancy on the log sheet and finished the inventory. Everything else matched. I closed the closet and stood in the hallway. The rule said not to remove the extra items. It didn't say why. I thought about ignoring it, about taking the 3 extra trash bags and throwing them away, but the rule was clear. Variations will result in immediate termination. I went back downstairs. At 6 a.m., I unlocked the front door and walked to my car. The sky was lightening in the east. The air was cold. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. My phone signal returned. 3 missed calls from my landlord. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I drove home and slept until 2 p.m. Sunday night, I arrived at 9:54. Gerald's truck was parked near the entrance. He met me in the lobby and handed me the radio. Any problems Thursday? Extra trash bags showed up during inventory. You note it? Yes. Good. Anything else? Footsteps during the 3 a.m. walk. They stopped when I reached the lobby. Did you see anyone? No. Then you followed the rules. Keep doing that. He left at 9:59. I locked the door at 10. The shift followed the same pattern. Perimeter walks at 11 and 3, both 214 steps. Pump checks at midnight, 2 and 4. Inventory at 1 and 5. The trash bags were back to 23 at 1 a.m. At 5 a.m., they were 23 again. No footsteps. No sounds from upstairs between 2 and 2:30. No knocking in the pipes. At 6 a.m., I left. Monday night was the same. Tuesday night was the same. Wednesday night, I arrived at 9:55. Gerald wasn't there. A note was taped to the front door. Spare radio in break room, top shelf. Take both. I unlocked the door and went to the break room. The spare radio sat on the top shelf next to a box of coffee filters. I clipped it to my other hip. At 10 p.m., I locked the front door and checked the windows. All closed. At 11 p.m., I started the perimeter walk. 183 steps in, the lights went out. Complete darkness. I stopped walking and pulled my flashlight from my belt. The beam cut a narrow cone through the hall. Rule 11. If the building lights go out, do not try to turn them back on. I continued walking. 214 steps. I reached the lobby and sat down. The building was silent except for the pumps. My flashlight beam moved across the desk, the walls, the dark windows. I checked my watch. 11:08. I waited. At midnight, I radioed Gerald. No response. I waited 1 minute. I tried again. Plant 7, night shift, checking in. Static. Confirmed. Gerald's voice normal. I went to the pump room and checked the gauges by flashlight. All normal. I logged them. At 1 a.m., I climbed the stairs in darkness. My flashlight showed the hallway, the locked bathroom, the supply closet. I counted inventory. Everything matched. I noted the counts and went back downstairs. At 2 a.m., I stayed in the lobby. I heard the same creaking from upstairs. Then silence. At 2:31, I radioed Gerald, confirmed. The pump room gauges were normal, no knocking. At 3 a.m., I started the perimeter walk, 20 steps, 50, 84. At step 109, I heard the footsteps again. Behind me, steady, I kept walking. 147, 166. The footsteps stayed close. At step 180, I heard breathing. I kept walking. 200, 214. I reached the lobby. The footsteps stopped. I turned and shined my flashlight down the hall. Empty. My watch read 3:06. I sat down and wrote the details in my notepad. At 4 a.m., I radioed Gerald. Confirmed. I checked the pumps, normal. At 4:15, I checked the front door lock, still engaged. At 5 a.m., I did the final inventory. Everything matched. At 6 a.m., the lights came back on. I unlocked the door and left. The sky was overcast. Rain was starting. Thursday night, Gerald met me in the parking lot at 9:53. He looked tired. Lights went out last night? Yes. I followed Rule 11. Good. How many times did you hear footsteps? Twice. Sunday and Wednesday. He nodded. That's normal. You'll probably hear them every shift now. Just keep walking. Don't turn around. Don't stop. Don't talk. You're doing fine. What are they? Doesn't matter. They follow the rules same as you. They stop at the lobby. That's what's important. He handed me a folded piece of paper, blue this time. Amendments. Read these before you start. Some things have changed. Why? Because they always change. Read them. He walked to his truck and drove away. I went inside and locked the door at 10 p.m. I checked the windows, all closed. Then I unfolded the blue paper. Amendments, effective immediately. 1. The 2 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. restriction now applies to the second floor only. If you are on the second floor at 2 a.m., come downstairs immediately. Do not return upstairs until 2:31 a.m. 2. During perimeter walks, if you count more than 220 steps, stop walking immediately. Do not move forward or backward. Stand still for 2 minutes by your watch, then return to the lobby by the shortest route. Do not run. 3. If the pump room door is open when you arrive for a scheduled check, do not enter. Radio Gerald immediately. Wait in the lobby for instructions. If Gerald does not respond within 5 minutes, log check deferred on the sheet and continue your other tasks. 4. Inventory counts that are higher than previous entries are acceptable. Inventory counts that are lower than previous entries without a usage log must be reported immediately to Gerald via radio. Do not proceed with the inventory if a count is lower. 5. If you see Gerald in the building between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., ask him to state his employee number. If he does not say 227 within 3 seconds, do not interact with him. Leave the room or area immediately and radio the real Gerald on channel 7. 6. Between 3:30 a.m. and 4 a.m., do not go near the windows. Stay in the center of any room. If you must pass a window, do so quickly without looking outside. I read the amendments 3 times. My hands were cold. At 11 p.m., I started the perimeter walk. I counted carefully. 214 steps. No footsteps behind me. At midnight, I radioed Gerald, confirmed. The pump room door was closed. I entered and checked the gauges. Normal, no knocking. I logged the readings. At 1 a.m., I did inventory upstairs. All counts matched the previous log. I noted them and returned downstairs. At 2 a.m., I stayed in the lobby. The building was silent, no creaking. At 2:31, I radioed Gerald, confirmed. The pump room was normal. I logged the readings. At 3 a.m., I started the perimeter walk. 54 steps in, the footsteps began. I kept walking. 112, 158, 214. I reached the lobby. The footsteps stopped. At 3:30 a.m., I moved to the center of the lobby away from the windows. I sat on the floor with my back to the desk and watched my watch. 3:31, 3:37, 3:44. At 3:52, I heard something outside tapping on glass, rhythmic. 5 taps, pause, 5 taps. I didn't move. I didn't look. The tapping continued for 3 minutes, then it stopped. At 4 a.m., I stood and radioed Gerald. Confirmed. I checked the pump room. Normal. At 4:15, I checked the front door. Locked. At 5 a.m., I did the final inventory. Everything matched. At 6 a.m., I left. Friday and Saturday, I slept and tried not to think about the tapping. Sunday night, I came back. The 4th week was worse. Sunday night, I arrived at 9:56. Gerald's truck was gone. The note on the door said, "Radio on Channel 7 if you need me. Follow amendments. G." I locked the door at 10 and checked the windows. All closed. At 11 p.m., I started the perimeter walk. At step 218, I realized I'd miscounted. I stopped walking immediately. Amendment 2. Stand still for 2 minutes. I checked my watch. 11:04 and 32 seconds. I stood in the hallway and breathed slowly. The fluorescent lights hummed above me. I could see the lobby entrance ahead, maybe 20 feet. 11:05, 11:05 and 41 seconds, 11:06. At 11:06 and 32 seconds, I heard a door open behind me. Slow creak. I didn't turn around. 11:06 and 50 seconds. Footsteps in the hallway coming toward me, not the same rhythm as before. Faster, heavier. 11:07, 11:07 and 18 seconds. The footsteps stopped. Close, maybe 5 feet behind me, breathing, wet and rattling. 11:07 and 32 seconds, 2 minutes. I walked toward the lobby. I didn't run. The footsteps didn't follow. I reached the desk and sat down. My legs were shaking. I wrote the details in my notepad. 11 p.m. walk, 218 steps. Stopped, 2 min. Footsteps approached during wait, did not follow. At midnight, I radioed Gerald, confirmed. The pump room door was closed. Inside, the gauges read normal. I logged them and left. No knocking. At 1 a.m., I went upstairs. The supply closet inventory matched. I noted the counts. At 2 a.m., I stayed in the lobby. Upstairs, I heard the door close again. Faint. Then silence. At 2:31, I radioed Gerald. Confirmed. The pump room was normal. At 3 a.m., I started the perimeter walk. The footsteps began at step 70. They followed me all the way to the lobby, 214 steps exactly. At 3:30 a.m., I moved to the center of the lobby. The tapping started at 3:34. 5 taps, pause, 5 taps. It moved from window to window. I didn't look. At 4 a.m., I radioed Gerald, confirmed. The pump room was normal. At 4:15, I checked the front door. Locked. At 5 a.m., I did the final inventory. The salt containers were at 17. I counted again. 17. I checked the previous entry. 16. 1 extra. I noted the discrepancy and finished the inventory. Everything else matched. At 6 a.m., I left. Monday night, I arrived at 9:55. Gerald was in the lobby. He looked at my notepad. 218 steps? Yes, I stopped for 2 minutes like the amendment said. Did anything touch you? No. Then you did it right. Did you see what was behind you? No. Good, don't. He flipped through the pages. Salt went up by 1? Yes. Noted. That's fine. Anything lower? No? Okay. Keep doing what you're doing. You're past 3 weeks now. After tonight, you're on full pay rate. 4 more weeks and we'll talk about reducing your shift days if you want. I'll think about it. He handed me a 3rd sheet, white this time, smaller than the others. Emergency protocols. Memorize these tonight. Weather's coming in midweek. Might lose power again. He left. I locked the door at 10 and read the new sheet. Emergency protocols. Blackout. Severe weather 1. If the building loses power and does not restore within 5 minutes, initiate emergency mode. Continue all scheduled tasks using your flashlight. Do not attempt to restore power. 2. If you hear sirens or emergency broadcasts on the radio, remain inside the building. Do not open the front door. Complete your shift as scheduled. 3. If the pump room gauges drop below 40 or rise above 80 during a power outage, radio Gerald immediately. If he does not respond within 3 minutes, proceed to the supply closet and retrieve 2 salt containers. Place 1 container inside the pump room near the door and 1 container in the lobby near the front entrance. Do not open the containers. The sheet ended there. 3 rules. Simple. I folded it and put it in my pocket. The shift was quiet. Perimeter walks at 11 and 3, both 214 steps. Footsteps during the 3 a.m. walk, stopping at the lobby. Pump checks normal. Inventory normal. No tapping at the windows. At 6 a.m. I left. Tuesday night was the same. Wednesday night the storm hit. I arrived at 9:52. Rain hammered the roof and the parking lot. Wind shook the trees at the edge of the property. Gerald's truck wasn't there. I locked the door at 10 and checked the windows. All closed, but rain streaked the glass and I could see branches bending in the floodlights. At 10:17 the power went out. I pulled my flashlight and checked my watch. 10:18, 5-minute timer. The building was dark except for my beam. The rain was louder without the hum of the fluorescents. I sat at the desk and waited. 10:19, 10:20, 10:21. At 10:23, the lights did not come back on. Emergency mode. I stood and started the 11 p.m. perimeter walk early. The flashlight beam showed the hallway in pieces. I counted steps carefully. 214. No footsteps. I returned to the lobby. At midnight, I radioed Gerald. Plant 7, night shift, checking in. Static for 5 seconds. Confirmed? I went to the pump room. The door was closed. Inside, the darkness was thicker. The pumps were louder. I checked each gauge by flashlight. First gauge, 61. Second, 59. Third, 37. I stopped. Third gauge, 37. Below 40. Emergency protocol 3. I radioed Gerald. Plant 7, pump gauge below threshold, requesting instructions. Static. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. No response. I logged check deferred on the sheet and left the pump room. I climbed the stairs to the supply closet, opened it, and took 2 salt containers. Heavy. White plastic. The labels said industrial grade, do not consume. I carried 1 container to the pump room and placed it inside the door against the wall. I didn't open it. Then I carried the 2nd container to the lobby and placed it near the front entrance. My watch read 12:14. I sat at the desk. The rain had gotten heavier. Wind rattled something outside, metal on metal. At 1 a.m. I went upstairs for inventory. The hallway was black except for my flashlight. I counted every item. Everything matched. I noted the counts and returned downstairs. At 2 a.m. I stayed in the lobby. Upstairs I heard the door again. Then footsteps moving across the 2nd floor. Slow. Deliberate. They walked the length of the hallway and stopped. I checked my watch. 2:07. 24 minutes until I could go back upstairs. The footsteps resumed. They walked back the other direction, then stopped again. At 2:31, the footsteps were silent. I radioed Gerald. Static, no response. I waited 1 minute and tried again. Plant 7 night shift, checking in. Static then. Confirmed. I went to the pump room. I checked the gauges by flashlight. 3rd gauge, 42. Back to normal. I logged the readings. The salt container sat untouched near the door. At 3 a.m., I started the perimeter walk. At step 41, the footsteps began. They followed me. Same rhythm. At step 112, I heard breathing again. Wet. Close. At step 198, something touched my shoulder. Light pressure, cold. I didn't stop walking. Rule 9. If they touch you, leave the building immediately. But it was 3:04 a.m. I couldn't leave. The rule said to wait until 6 a.m. I finished the walk. 214 steps. The footsteps stopped at the lobby entrance. I turned and shined my flashlight down the hall. A figure stood at the edge of the beam. Tall, thin. It didn't move. I lowered the flashlight and sat at the desk. My watch read 3:06. I wrote, 3 a.m. walk, 214 steps, touch during walk. Figure visible at lobby edge. At 3:30, I moved to the center of the lobby. The tapping started at 3:32. 5 taps, pause, 5 taps. It circled the building. I kept my flashlight aimed at the floor. At 4 a.m., I radioed Gerald. Confirmed. I went to the pump room. The gauges were normal. I logged them. At 4:15, I checked the front door. Locked. At 5 a.m., I went upstairs for the final inventory. The flashlight showed the hallway, the locked bathroom, the supply closet. I counted every item: radio batteries 42, salt containers 14. I stopped. 14. The previous count was 16. I'd taken 2 for the emergency protocol, so it should be 14, but I'd noted 17 on Sunday's log. 17 minus 2 was 15. I counted again. 14. 1 missing. I checked the log sheet. Sunday's entry, 17. Tonight's previous entry, 16. The count was lower. Amendment 4. Report. Immediately. I radioed Gerald. No response. I waited 1 minute. I tried again. Plant 7, inventory count lower, requesting instructions. Static. I waited 3 minutes. No response. The rule said to report immediately, but Gerald wasn't answering. I noted count discrepancy, salt containers 14 present, 1 unaccounted on the log sheet, and finished the inventory. Everything else matched. I went back downstairs. My watch read 5:23. At 5:38, I heard something upstairs, a door opening, the locked bathroom, water running. I stayed in the lobby. Rule 5. If you hear water running in the other bathroom, do not investigate. The water ran for 4 minutes, then it stopped. At 6 a.m., the power came back on. The lights flickered and held. I blinked in the sudden brightness. The salt containers were gone. Lobby and pump room, both gone. I unlocked the front door and walked to my car. The rain had stopped. The sky was clearing in the east. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. My phone showed 2 missed calls from Gerald. I drove home. Thursday night, Gerald met me in the parking lot at 9:50. He handed me a small cardboard box. New radio. Old one's frequency is compromised. Use this starting tonight. Still channel 7. Destroy the old one. The salt containers disappeared. I know. That's normal during emergency protocol. They're back in the closet now. Count should be 16 again. 1 was missing before the protocol. I saw your log note. It's handled. Don't worry about it. What touched me during the 3 a.m. walk? He looked at me. You didn't leave the building. The rule said to leave if they touch me, but it was 3 a.m. You made the right call. Front door rule overrides contact rule between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. I should have clarified that. I'll add it to the amendments. What was it? Doesn't matter. It didn't follow you past the lobby, that's what matters. He handed me another folded paper, green. 2 more amendments. Read them now. I unfolded the paper. Additional amendments. If something touches you during a perimeter walk between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., complete the walk and return to the lobby. Do not leave the building. The front door rule takes priority. Note the incident in your log. 2. Between 4:30 a.m. and 5 a.m. Do not shine your flashlight at the ceiling. Keep the beam pointed at the floor or straight ahead. If the lights are on, do not look up. Gerald waited while I read. Understood? Yes. Good, you're doing fine. 4 more weeks and we'll talk about cutting you down to 3 shifts instead of 5. He left. I went inside and locked the door at 10 p.m. The shift was smooth until 4:32 a.m. I was sitting at the desk, writing in my notepad when I heard something above me. Scraping, like something heavy being dragged across the second floor. I kept my eyes down. Amendment 2. Do not look up. The scraping moved from one end of the building to the other. It stopped directly above the lobby. I wrote, 4:32 a.m. Scraping sounds, second floor, directly above lobby position. The scraping resumed. It moved back toward the stairs, then stopped. At 5 a.m., I went upstairs for inventory. The hallway was empty. The locked bathroom was dark. I counted the supplies, salt containers, 16, everything else matched. At 6 a.m., I left. Friday night was my last shift of the week. I arrived at 9:54. No note from Gerald. I locked the door at 10 and checked the windows. The shift followed the pattern. Perimeter walks, pump checks, inventory, radio calls. Footsteps during the 3 a.m. walk. Tapping at the windows between 3:30 and 4. Scraping above the lobby at 4:35. At 5 a.m., I went upstairs. The supply closet inventory matched. I noted the counts and closed the door. I walked past the locked bathroom. The door was dark underneath. No water sounds. I continued down the hall toward the stairs. Behind me, I heard the locked bathroom door open. I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I reached the stairs and went down. At 6 a.m., I unlocked the front door and left. In my car, I checked my phone. One text from Gerald, good work. See you Sunday. I drove home and slept for 11 hours. Sunday night, I arrived at 9:53. Gerald's truck was parked near the entrance. He met me in the lobby and looked at my notepad. 5 weeks. You're in the top 20% for retention. How do you feel? Tired? That's normal. You want to drop to 3 shifts? Not yet. I need the money. Understood. Weather's clear this week, should be quiet. Keep following the rules exactly. You're doing everything right. He left. I locked the door at 10 and checked the windows. At 11 p.m., I started the perimeter walk. 214 steps, no footsteps. At midnight, I radioed Gerald. Confirmed. Pump room normal. At 1 a.m., I did inventory. Everything matched. At 2 a.m., I stayed downstairs. Upstairs, silence. At 2:31, I radioed Gerald. Confirmed. At 3 a.m., I started the perimeter walk. The footsteps began at step 63. They followed me to the lobby, 214 steps. At 3:30, I moved to the center of the lobby. No tapping. At 4 a.m., I radioed Gerald. Confirmed, pump room normal. At 4:15, I checked the front door. Locked. At 4:32, the scraping started above me. I kept my eyes down. It moved across the ceiling and stopped. At 5 a.m., I went upstairs. Inventory matched. I noted the counts. At 6 a.m., I left. The 6th week was the same. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 5 shifts. Same patterns. Footsteps, tapping, scraping. Inventory matched. Gauges normal. Radio calls confirmed. Friday night, I arrived at 9:55. Gerald wasn't there. The note on the door said, new hire starts Monday. You'll train them Sunday night. Read the rules together. G. I went inside and locked the door at 10. The shift was routine. At 6 a.m., I left. Saturday, I didn't sleep well. I kept thinking about the footsteps, the tapping, the scraping. I thought about my sister. I thought about the rules. Sunday night, I arrived at 9:48. Gerald's truck was there. A second car sat next to it, a blue sedan. Inside the lobby, Gerald stood with a young man, maybe 22. Thin, nervous. Gerald handed me the radio and a yellow paper. "Emma, this is Josh. Josh, this is Emma. She'll walk you through tonight. Josh, read these rules now." He gave Josh the rules sheet. The same 11 rules I'd read on my first night. Josh read them. His hands shook slightly. "Questions?" Gerald asked. "What happens if I see someone in the building?" "Emma will show you. Follow her lead. Do what she does." Gerald checked his watch. 9:56, I'm leaving. Emma's in charge tonight. Josh listened to her exactly. He left. I locked the door at 10 p.m. and turned to Josh. "Have you worked night shifts before?" "No." "Can you follow instructions exactly?" "Yes." "Good. Stay close to me. Don't talk unless I ask you a question. If something happens, do what I do." At 11 p.m., we started the perimeter walk. I counted steps aloud. Josh counted with me. 214, no footsteps. At midnight, I showed him the radio procedure. We checked the pump room together. I explained the gauges. He logged the readings. At 1 a.m., we went upstairs. I showed him the supply closet inventory. He counted every item and wrote the numbers down. At 2 a.m., we stayed in the lobby. Josh looked at the ceiling. "Why can't we go upstairs right now?" "Rule 8, just wait." At 2:14, we heard the door upstairs. Josh tensed. "What is that?" "Doesn't matter. We stay here until 2:31. The footsteps walked across the second floor. Josh stared at the ceiling. I put my hand on his shoulder. "Don't look up. Sit down." We sat at the desk. The footsteps stopped. At 2:31, I radioed Gerald. Confirmed. We checked the pump room. Normal. At 3 a.m., we started the perimeter walk. At step 70, the footsteps began behind us. Josh stopped walking. "Keep moving," I said. "Don't stop. Don't turn around." We walked. The footsteps followed. At step 132, Josh turned his head. "Eyes forward," I said. 214 steps. We reached the lobby. The footsteps stopped. Josh was pale. "What was that?" "It doesn't matter. It stopped at the lobby. That's what matters." At 3:30, I moved us to the center of the lobby. The tapping started. Josh looked toward the windows. "Don't look." "But don't look. Sit down. Watch your hands. Count your breaths. Wait." The tapping continued. 5 taps, pause, 5 taps. Josh kept his eyes on the floor. 4 a.m. We radioed Gerald and checked the pump room. Normal. At 4:15, we checked the front door. Locked. At 4:34, the scraping started above us. Josh looked up. I grabbed his arm. "Eyes down. Now." He looked down. The scraping moved across the ceiling and stopped. At 5 a.m., we went upstairs. I showed him the final inventory. He counted the supplies. Everything matched. At 6 a.m., we unlocked the front door and walked outside. The sun was rising. Josh leaned against his car and breathed deeply. "You did fine," I said. "You followed the rules." "What is this place?" "It's a water treatment plant. You operate it at night, that's all." "That's not all." "It is. Come back tomorrow night. It gets easier." He drove away. I sat in my car and checked my phone. One text from Gerald. "He'll be back. Good training." I drove home. Josh came back Monday night and Tuesday and Wednesday. By Thursday, he was calmer. He counted steps without prompting. He didn't flinch at the footsteps. He kept his eyes down during the scraping. Friday night, Gerald met us in the lobby at 9:50. "Josh, you're ready for solo shifts. Starting next week, you'll take Sunday and Monday. Emma keeps Tuesday through Thursday. We're hiring a third person for Friday and Saturday." Josh nodded. "Understood." Gerald handed me an envelope. 6 weeks of full pay. "You've earned it. 3 more weeks and we'll talk about a supervisor position." I opened the envelope in my car. The check was more than I'd made in 3 months at the pharmacy. I deposited it on my phone before I drove away. The routine held. Week 7, Week 8, Week 9. I worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Josh worked Sunday and Monday. A new hire named Maria took Friday and Saturday. I trained her the same way I'd trained Josh. The rules didn't change. The pattern stayed consistent. Footsteps during the 3 a.m. walk. Tapping at 3:30, scraping at 4:30. Inventory counts fluctuated by 1 or 2 items occasionally, always noted, always resolved. At the end of week 9, Gerald offered me the supervisor position. 4 shifts a month, double pay, plus bonuses for successful training. I accepted. I wrote a new rules document for the next supervisor. I kept the original 11 rules. I added the amendments. I added the emergency protocols. I wrote clear instructions for every scenario I'd encountered. I included one additional note at the bottom. Follow these rules exactly. Variations will result in immediate termination. The building operates on strict procedures. Your job is to maintain those procedures, not to understand them. Count your steps. Check your watch. Log everything. Do not investigate sounds, figures, or anomalies. Complete your tasks and leave at 6 a.m. The night shift is simple. The night shift is survivable. The night shift pays well. Someone will replace you eventually. Make sure they understand the rules. I signed it, dated it, and filed it in the lobby desk. On my last Tuesday-Thursday shift, I walked the perimeter at 3 a.m. The footsteps followed me, same as always. 214 steps. They stopped at the lobby. I sat at the desk and looked at the dark windows, the locked front door, the stairs leading up to the second floor. The building hummed around me, the pumps ran, the rules held. At 6 a.m., I unlocked the door and walked outside. The sun was rising over the water tower. My car sat alone in the parking lot. Got in, locked the doors, and drove away. Someone else would work tonight, and tomorrow night, and the night after that. The rules would keep them safe. The rules always did.